Did you know that George R.R. Martin has already given us 11 chapters of The Winds of Winter? Let's take a look. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek. On this channel we cover A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones in depth, as well as The Lord of the Rings and The Witcher. If you're interested in that, welcome. At the time of writing this video, we've been waiting nearly 14 years for The Winds of Winter, which, as much as I want to and do support George R.R. Martin and affirm that it's his book and he can take as long as he wants until it's ready, is frustrating. Thankfully, we've already had some of that book. In the years following the release of A Dance with Dragons, George R.R. Martin has released no fewer than 11 chapters of The Winds of Winter in various forms. Some he released in full through semi-official channels like his website. Others he read out at conventions, and we just have the accounts of those who were there, but still, that's 11 chapters. The Winds of Winter will likely be a huge book, but the largest book in A Song of Ice and Fire so far has only had 81 chapters, so that's a sizable proportion. Enough to give us a flavour of where the action is going. And if you were wondering, that's probably all we will get until the book is itself published. He's gone on record as saying that there's a limit to how much of a book you can release before the book itself, and we've reached it. So, what has he given us, and why? Well, to answer the second part first, he has given us these chapters simply because he wants us to have them. Thank you, George. Some were very clearly chapters he wrote at the same time as A Dance with Dragons and decided with his editors that they would probably fit better with The Winds of Winter. Each book has a narrative arc, and some chapters work better as the start of a new arc than the end of an old one. And some are just chapters from the new book that he decided to grace us with. For what it's worth, I'm pretty sure that all of these chapters will be placed in the first act of The Winds of Winter. They all follow on naturally from what we already have in A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons. We haven't skipped any chapters for any POV character, for example. The Theon chapter picks up where we left him, just like the Tyrion chapters, and so on. They may not end up being the exact first 11 chapters of the book, in fact I suspect not, but they are the first POV chapters we will get for those characters. Oh, and as a final bit of context, it's possible, indeed likely, that some of these chapters aren't in their final form. George R.R. Martin has hinted in his Not a Blog that he's gone back and revised at least one of them. I suspect that most will survive relatively intact, but we can't be sure. So what do we have? Well, 5 of the 11 chapters are about the forthcoming Battle of Fire, as the fandom have dubbed it, or the Second Siege of Meereen, as it's more boringly known. When we left the action in Meereen, Dany had flown off into the Dothraki Sea on Drogon. In her absence, Sir Barristan took charge of the city. It needs leading because the Yunkish have brought an army to besiege the city, and have brought the bloody flux too. Disease is spreading, and at some point Sir Barristan expects a fleet from Volantis to arrive to reinforce the attackers. The dragons Rhaegal and Viserion are flying free, but without Dany there is no one to direct their fire. Sir Barristan, with all his battle experience, but against his instincts, decides that the best approach is a surprise attack to take out the trebuchets bombarding the city. So he gathers the best fighters he has, a motley collection of sellswords, pit fighters, the unsullied and half-trained Dany loyalists, and gives them a pep talk, then charges out of the gates to take down those trebuchets. That's where the first Barristan chapter ends, and the second chapter, which was read out at a convention, picks up immediately afterwards. It actually wouldn't surprise me if George R.R. Martin decides to merge the two of them in the final draft. In the second chapter, we are with Sir Barristan as he charges, takes out some opponents, watches as some of his allies fail, feels grateful that the Yunkish are quite slow to react, notes the absence of the sellsword companies the Yunkish had brought with them, more on that in a moment, then notices that there are a lot more ships in the bay than there had been before. He assumes it is Volantis come to reinforce his enemies, and his heart sinks, but he's shocked to discover that it is the Iron Fleet. What are the Iron Islanders doing here? He doesn't know yet, but it is Victarion. And we have a chapter from his POV too, as his fleet is nearing Meereen. This is another one that George has just read out, so we don't have a full transcript. Victarion orders one of his subordinates to lead the attack on the Yunkish, while he holds back on his ship because he has a cunning plan. Euron gave him Dragonbinder, which apparently can be used to control dragons. He's going to get 3 thralls to blow the horn, control the dragons, and then claim Daenerys for his wife. then go back to the Iron Islands, defeat Euron, and take the Iron Throne for himself. A plan with no flaws. Well, we can see quite a few flaws in it, actually. The last person to blow the horn died, so probably those 3 thralls will too. It was gifted to him by Euron, so it is probably still bound to him in some magical way, not Victarion. Moqorro, the Red Priest, is on a mission to support Dany, so probably won't let Victarion steal her dragons, and Dany and Drogon aren't there anyway, so there is no Dragon Queen for him to claim. Victarion is probably right about the one thing he is usually good at, the battle itself. It looks likely that the arrival of the Ironborn will turn the tide of the siege. Meanwhile, outside Meereen, Tyrion and Jorah is with the Second Sons Sellsword Company, who are currently contracted to the Yunkish. We get 2 chapters from his POV, although the first one is another one of those George R. R. Martin just read out and we don't have a full transcript. Basically, Tyrion uses these 2 chapters to try to convince Brown Ben Plum, the leader of the Second Sons, to switch sides and support Daenerys. Orders come from the Yunkish to counterattack Sir Barristan's charge, which they ignore. You'll remember Barristan being surprised that didn't happen in his chapter. This is why. They witness the arrival of the Ironborn and note that Sir Barristan's charge has already destroyed one of the trebuchets. Eventually, Brown Ben Plum announces that they have always been Queen's men, and joining the Yunkish had just been a ruse. Again, I do wonder whether these 2 chapters might end up being merged, as they follow the same arc of Tyrion trying to persuade the Second Sons to switch sides, until at the end they do. So that's the Battle of Fire. It seems that Meereen will prevail. Sir Barristan's unexpected attack, plus Victarion's intervention and the Second Sons changing sides, all combine to shift the momentum. There are a lot of unanswered questions, though. What happens when Dragonbinder is blown? How will Tyrion and Jorah be received by Sir Barristan? And is the Volantene fleet really on its way? How much more damage will the Pale Mare do? Yes, Meereen will remain in the hands of Dany loyalists for the time being. Tyrion is one step closer to actually meeting her, as is Jorah in returning to her presence, but Victarion is actively trying to steal dragons, so any peace is unlikely to last long. Elsewhere in Essos, we get Arya. We last saw her having completed her first assassination for the Faceless Men and being sent to work on another undercover mission. This one. She is known as Mercydene, or Mercy for short. That's the name of the chapter. She is in a mummers troupe who are performing a play clearly based on recent happenings in King's Landing, including a fat king, a young king, and a lecherous, murderous dwarf. Arya is due to play someone assaulted and murdered by that dwarf, so presumably Shay, or perhaps even a sensationalised version of her sister Sansa. At the play are some Westerosies. Cersei had sent Harys Swift to negotiate with the Iron Bank about the Crown's debts. Arya recognises one of the guards, Raff the Sweetling, one of the names on her list. He killed her friend Lomi, so she lures him back to her room, then kills him. There's a lot going on in this chapter. The Faceless Men know that Arya is struggling to give up her Stark identity. Are we to believe that it's a coincidence, that her mission is to act out scenes from her traumatic youth? Is this a test to see if she really can become no one? Or are they hoping that she will kill Raff? Could it even be a contract from the Iron Bank? The kindly man will doubtless discover what Arya has done, so what happens then? It's not the first time she has killed someone they didn't authorise while in training with them. Whatever is going on, it's clear, however, that Arya's connection to her Stark identity is still very strong, and probably will be what leads her to leaving Braavos in the Winds of Winter. Here she wakes fresh from wolf dreams, critiques the accuracy of the play in her mind, and obviously crosses off another name on her list. Another Stark is alone and under an assumed identity on the other side of the Narrow Sea, Sansa, in the Vale. Her chapter is titled Elaine, as she is still pretending to be Littlefinger's bastard daughter, and she is playing politics and watching as Littlefinger plays even more politics. The Knights of the Vale are arriving at the Gates of the Moon for a tourney, through which will be decided the membership of the new Brotherhood of Winged Knights, a sort of Kingsguard for Robert Arryn, suggested by Sansa. We follow Sansa, as Elaine, as she picks her way through the personalities and preparations for the tourney. There's Robin Arryn himself, who she is learning to influence and manage. Miranda Royce, who brings her the courtly gossip. Lynn Corbray, whose side she tries to work out he is actually on. Littlefinger, who is hoarding grain for profit and influence. Sir Shadrich, who may have recognised her. And at the end of it all, Harry Harding, known as Harry the Heir, who Littlefinger wants her to marry. They don't start out well. He insults her for being a bastard, but by the end of the chapter she has charmed and intrigued him. It's clear that Sansa is learning fast and getting good at the game. Meanwhile, up in the north we have a Theon chapter. We last saw him escaping from Winterfell with Jane Poole, fake Arya, in A Dance with Dragons. He has now been taken to Stannis' camp in a crofters' village a few days outside Winterfell. They are snowed in and conditions continue to deteriorate. Theon is chained up in Stannis' makeshift command post, and basically the chapter is Stannis dealing with a succession of characters while Theon observes and occasionally gets involved with the conversation. Stannis signs a loan deal with Tycho Nestoris from the Iron Bank. They have clearly decided to back him, not Cersei, for the Iron Throne, sending him back to Castle Black with an escort including Sir Justin Massey, who is taking Jane Poole, still pretending to be Arya Stark, to Jon Snow. Nestoris and Massey are then due to head to Braavos, where Justin Massey will use the money from the loan to hire sellswords for Stannis' army. Stannis also learns that Arnulf Karstark is planning on betraying him, so deals with that, issues orders in preparation for the forthcoming Battle of Ice. Roose Bolton has sent a force out to take him on, and finally deals with Theon, deciding he wants to kill him to curry favour with the Northmen in his army. Everyone still thinks Theon murdered Bran and Rickon, remember. Asher suggests that Theon be killed in front of the weirwood tree, and the ravens in their cages noisily seem to agree, which is where we leave the chapter. It's fair to say that George R. R. Martin has set up a lot of plot with this chapter. What happens at that weirwood tree? When Jane Poole arrives at the wall, at the Battle of Ice? There's a lot. Then, to head down to the south of the continent, we have 2 chapters for Arianne Martell. John Connington had sent a letter to Doran Martell telling him that Aegon VI, Rhaegar's son, had landed with an invading army in the Stormlands and seeking his support. Doran sent Arianne to meet this Aegon and see what's going on. Both chapters are Arianne travelling with her companions through Dorne, then the Rainwood. She thinks a bit about her co-conspirators in her ill-fated coup attempt earlier, and where they are now, gets to explore some caves that seem once to have been used by the Children of the Forest, discovers that much of that part of the world has indeed already been taken over by the invading army, before arriving at Griffin's Roost, where she meets Haldon Halfmaester. You may remember him from Tyrion's chapters aboard the Shy Maid in A Dance with Dragons, who informs her that John Connington and Aegon have now taken Storm's End, an impressive feat, and she should join them there. Elsewhere in the south, we have probably my favourite of all these chapters, The Forsaken, which is from the POV of Aeron Greyjoy. He's the priest of the drowned god and brother to Euron, Balon and Victarion. We catch up on what he has been up to since the Kingsmoot that made Euron king of the Iron Islands. It seems that he tried to rally support for a popular uprising against Euron, but was soon caught by Euron's lackeys and imprisoned. He has moved from prison to prison before ending up on an island near the Arbor, off the coast of the Reach. A couple of times, Euron forces him to drink Shade of the Evening, which gives him vivid visions of lots of things, including Euron on the Iron Throne as a kraken, surrounded by dead gods with a pale-skinned woman standing nearby. Unpacking those visions is probably a video in itself. Euron continues to torture him not just physically but also mentally, telling him all the family members he's killed. Aeron isn't alone in his prison. There are other priests and the warlocks from Karth. There's a whole story there too. Euron seems to have been collecting priests and magic users for the forthcoming sea battle with the Hightower and Redwyne fleets. He's strapping them to the prows of his ships, together with the mother of his unborn child. Oh, and he's apparently wearing Valyrian steel armour now. It feels like the build-up to some apocalyptic battle and magic with priestly sacrifices, carnage, and probably krakens rising from the deep. Disturbing stuff. So that's what we have. I should give again the health warning that George R. R. Martin has said on his blog that he has gone back and reworked at least one of these chapters, so there will be some changes made to what we have, and there's obviously a lot more detail than I have gone into in this video. Perhaps I'll break them down in more detail elsewhere. Let me know if you'd like that. But as these chapters stand, they still tell us much about what will happen in the start of the Winds of Winter. The Battle of Fire will be massive, and we will see it from 3 different perspectives, and we will probably end up with Sir Barristan, Tyrion, Jorah, Victarion and Moqorro all awaiting Daenerys' return from the Dothraki Sea, with the Volantene fleet, Marwyn the Mage, Karth and probably another maester or 2 also heading that way. Arya is still not giving up her Stark identity. This will probably sooner or later see her leave Braavos and head back to Westeros. Sansa is learning more about the Game of Thrones. She's playing Littlefinger's game for now, but for how long? Stannis is preparing for the Battle of Ice in the north and is planning on killing Theon. Arianne is travelling to meet Fagon, who has apparently just captured Storm's End, and Euron is setting himself up for an apocalyptic magical sea battle off the south coast of Westeros. Action across the length of Westeros and the breadth of Essos, which underlines the point that the story has now reached its broadest point, because these plotlines don't even cover half of what we might expect from the opening act of the Winds of Winter. What happens at the Wall after Jon's death? Bran in Bloodraven's cave, Brienne, Jaime and Lady Stoneheart in the Riverlands, Sam starting his studies in Oldtown, Cersei after she discovers Kevan's murder, Dany in the Dothraki Sea. The list goes on. From now on, though, things will start to draw together. But what struck you most about these chapters that we do have? Let me know in the comments below. If you're interested in more videos about the world of Ice and Fire, please click on the playlist on the left of your screen. Or if you'd like to support this channel, thank you. There's a link to my Patreon page on the right of your screen now. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.